Welcome. How are you?
Fine, thanks, Carrie. Thank you for having me on the show. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
I'm so intrigued in what you do and your experience that led you up to what you do now. So I too am intrigued to learn more from you and of course our audience to understand your skill set and how maybe they could take that on with themselves and learn a little bit more of what we can do to help with mental stress or stress in the workforce, whatever it might be. So if you don't mind, can you talk to me about your journey that led you up to being a resilient trainer?
Well, it was a long time coming. I actually have well over 30 years working in the healthcare industry, predominantly in adult mental health. But the last few years I was in palliative care. And during those journeys, I got to learn a lot about understanding how when the service delivery was good, it was because the people that were delivering it were in their best mental health and their best form. So that got me really exploring a little bit more around the impact and the interrelationship between quality of service and staying in the field long term, and what that means and what kind of a work environment and work culture do you need to have to make that happen. Personal story, a couple of my very, very close friends and colleagues didn't cope so well with mental health stress in the workplace. And although we were experts in mental health and substance use and all of that fun stuff, they did end up with their own journey of addictions. And one of them ended up recovering and the other one struggled lifetime. Mm-hmm. So I don't want that to happen to other people. You know, you spend so much time in investment training and becoming the professional that you are in whatever field that is, whether it's manufacturing or service delivery or, you know, any career path, you don't want to have to give it up because the workplace is making you sick. So that's kind of the underlying strategy behind my passion behind what I do. And along the line, you know, sort of thinking about what has kept me well versus some of my colleagues who didn't cope as well. The main thing was my connection to my horses and the animals in my life. So I really started digging into that and exploring that and found that there's a whole bunch of models and programs around how to use horses to help us understand our human behavior better. So that's the gist of it is, you know, I do the classroom stuff. I do stuff on video. I do stuff in person in training without the horses as well around how to build that culture so that your people are going to be attracted to staying with you know, you want the best people working for you. And then how do you keep those people healthy, productive, and committed and engaged so that they continue to be productive and support the goals of the organization. The thing with the horses is that it dives in a little bit deeper and we get to uncover some of the nitty-gritty stuff that's going on within the team dynamics way faster and can start problem solving immediately around, you know, small little things, sometimes bigger things, but often it's the small things that make a huge difference. So when my journey.
That's amazing. It's so intriguing to me that the animal foundation is there. As we all know, we all love animals for the most part, right? And they always tend to bring the comfort and the calmingness they do to me anyway, for the most part. But to add into the horse element, I would never have thought that a horse providing the calm nature and or helping you teach what you need to teach. And tell me a little bit about the specific challenges that you may run into doing what you do that we can learn a little bit more about.
Sure. I can give you a couple of case stories about things that have occurred during our training sessions. The interesting thing about horses is although they are big, they are prey animals, which means that they are eaten by other animals. And humans, by our very nature and design, regardless of what your dietary choices are, people are built as predators. We've got, you know, the eyes on the front of our head. We tend to talk shoulder to shoulder, you know, front on, as opposed to, you know, prey animals that tend to talk more side to side. And that's actually something that translates really well into the business world. if you're having to give feedback, it's better to stand at like a 45-degree angle as opposed to, front on, because that can be very intimidating. That is an attack pose.
Okay.
So just changing the angle slightly so that it's more open, so that you're not facing square on with each other. That makes it a little bit more acceptable for having conversations that might be a little bit more difficult, more challenging. People don't feel trapped and confronted when they're talked to side. So something to keep in mind. Even when I was in my previous career, I always had tables set with, a coffee table with, seats sort of at 45 degrees so that we could have a conversation and plan for what's out in the future, as opposed to confronting each other with more of a challenge. So it's, again, really something that the horses teach us around that. Other areas are around boundaries and how good are your boundaries, your personal boundaries, and of course your work boundaries. So we often end up doing exercises around seeing where we are strong and where we are weak in as far as enforcing our boundaries in the workplace. And then collectively, how is the organization enforcing their boundaries as far as who do they serve, who do they not serve, where are they taking a stance on certain issues that are relevant and important for that organization.
Do you find that there's a lot of personal boundaries that come into play that really affect the workplace boundaries? So then trying to amalgamate the two or not amalgamate the two to come to a synergy. Is there a synergy that really can develop out of that?
Absolutely. I love that you've used the word synergy, because that is really what we are talking about. A lot of people get caught up in talking about work-life balance. And the truth is there is no such thing as work-life balance. I mean, that precludes that the two things are of equal value, and they're not. At any given time, work might be more important and family might be more important. And it depends on where you are in that ebb and flow and what's most important for you to deal with at that particular moment. So you need to find that harmony and that synergy. And that all boils down to how good are we at enforcing our boundaries. When we say, no, I'm sorry, I can't take this call at 7:00 at night because I've got another commitment somewhere else. How good are you at standing firm on that? With the explanation and stuff, provided it's not, part of your written out clear job description. But,
right.
Where there is flexibility, how good are you at saying, no, I can't do this because da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And understanding how that flows into the workplace. I mean, it has to do with around culture and respect and diversity and being inclusive, to knowing where your boundaries are as an individual and what's important for you and what's important for other people. I mean, it could be something like, use the proper pronouns when you're talking to me, because if I don't feel respected, and that means I can't give my best. That's a clear boundary. Things like, I work, here's my time. I need to be available to drop my kids off at the school on these days at this time. So I will not be able to make, a 7:00 or 8:00 morning meeting because I have this other commitment. And being respectful. Obviously there are rules and regulations within the job's constraints, but where there's that flexibility, where are your boundaries and how is that going to make you a better worker? And organizationally, boundaries. You can't
Absolutely.
be all things to everybody, right?
Well, and I think, over the time, and especially in my generation, you've spread yourself so thin because you want to prove yourself. You want to, it's, and not saying that it's right, how hard, I learned how to work when I was younger from being a workhorse, like I was a workhorse. You're going to work hard. You're going to do this. You got to prove yourself. You got to climb the ladder. You got to do all this, where I didn't have boundaries in place back then. And as I've gotten older, I've put the boundaries put in place, and it's a weird, but it's a very gratifying position to be in at that point, because I've now set the boundaries, and now you can explore other things about yourself because you've put in those boundaries and allowed yourself to be more open and more focused when you should be and need to be.
Absolutely. And as a result, you end up becoming more committed to the organization.
Yeah.
Because because you feel that you're being valued and respected. And a lot of times that's what it comes down to, is being valued and respected, being seen and heard. And that's a lot of where the horses come in at showing us how others perceive us and how others react to us, our energy and our flow and our mindset. And that really is very telling.
Absolutely. And given, I'm sure too, with so many different types of personalities that we have to deal with in the workplace, there's so many different kind of training topics that you talk about, how, personality traits, how to deal with a person that has this type of personality trait. I'm assuming, and correct me if I'm wrong, Sue, that you can still put together a core basis that matches towards multiple personalities and then customize from there after the core is already implemented.
Absolutely. I mean, we work with organizations of all different backgrounds. We work with all different types of people. We work with people who are terrified of horses and people who are very comfortable around horses. And, everybody, you don't have to be up close and personal with the horses if that's not where your comfort level is. You can be, more of an observer and still get a lot out of it. And then the personality styles, you've got the leaders within the team, and that's not always just the person who has the title of team leader. There are leaders throughout the whole organization and at every levels. And so as a leader, how do you find those people and build them up so that they can continue to take that lead voice and feel fulfilled in their roles within the constraints of what you've got to work with the organization and the challenges, the reality of work. So, there's lots of different personality styles and personality types, and just cutting through to how do people communicate with each other, not just with their voice, but with their whole body, their whole energy. As I mentioned, having those difficult conversations, standing more to 45 degrees shoulder to shoulder, as opposed to, the typical meeting across a coffee table or a table where that is very adversarial. And how do you soften those things so that you can be more effective and you can deliver the message that you want to deliver in the way that is best, as opposed to being confrontational.
Wonderful. So you've given us one advice tip already in regards to proactively managing workplace stress and enhancing the team. Do you have a few more, another advice topic or another advice situation that you could provide to the team to help manage maybe a high stress team?
Sure. One of the other practices that is really important, and it doesn't necessarily have anything to do with horses particularly, but the practice of gratitude and saying thank you. A lot of times people get so focused and so stressed in their own level of anxiety around their workplace demands, that they forget to say thank you. Even if it is part of your job description, taking that few moments and saying thank you for getting that report in on time, or thank you for managing that project, or thank you for nailing that contract or that sales. Just those few little words of saying thank you for something very specific, not only does that lead to positive reinforcement so that people feel valued, but they also know that particularly if they're new to the job or if there's some changes going on, they know that they're on track with what they're doing, what they're delivering is, getting closer and closer to that ideal employee, and that they're valued. Everybody needs to belong, and being said, thank you, I appreciate you doing this is fabulous. So that's the kind of thing that is really important. Often starting meetings with going around the table saying what's working, as opposed to going around the table and starting off with what everybody's challenges are, where everybody's stuck, what everybody's, problems are. Starting off with what's working does change the mindset. It gets people on board. It gets people engaged. Employee engagement is such a huge issue right now. A lot of people are struggling with it, given all of the different challenges going on in our economy and our world. But starting off with what's working, what are your successes? Even if that success is pretty small and minimal, starting off with something positive. It changes the mindset and it makes you more puts your brain in a sense that it is more likely to engage in valuable problem solving as opposed to getting stuck in reactivity and negative risk management as opposed to being innovative and creative. So it's a little trick for your amygdala and your prefrontal cortex and all of that sciencey stuff. That's actually one of the good tricks to get you into that proactive, solution-focused thinking.
And I'm sure you've seen that it's over time that it's so easy to be in that negative reactory state of mind, right? Where it can be just as easy to go into this positive gratitude sense. It's just for some reason it just seems easier to some people to go into that negative world. So to add the gratitude, to say thank you for something is maybe small to you, but huge to that person that you're thanking. And again, different personality styles need different types of being thanked or appreciation within whatever their role is at that point in time, whether that's from personal or from the business sector. I'm sure that, again, just being noticed, right, and valued is huge.
Yeah. There's a whole bunch of theories in schools on how to say thank you and how everybody has their own way of feeling thanked and valued and loved and accepted. Right. For some people, it's words. For some people, it's gift cards. For some people, it's a pat on the back or a high five. Everybody's got their own little style, but even just a thank you is a good start, a good place to start. And not everything needs a gift card as a thank you or a trip to the Caribbean as a thank you. Do stuff. I mean, that's certainly a really for a lot of people that would be ideal, especially at this time of year. But you can do a lot with just saying a few words of thank you and acceptance and acknowledgement. And
the acknowledgement action, right? Absolutely.
Exactly. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, this has been a great conversation. I really appreciate your time, Sue. If you can just give me a little bit of detail of your company name and if somebody wants to reach out to you directly, how do they get a hold of you?
Sure. Best way is my website. It's communityhealthcareconsulting.ca. You can also reach me through LinkedIn, Sue Carr, also Community Healthcare Consulting, Instagram, Facebook. I'm there under both my personal name and Community Healthcare Consulting. So
awesome. You're all over social media. Awesome.
Yeah, I'm there.
Awesome. Again, thank you for your time. I found it truly inspirational and informative, and I'm sure other businesses will find it exactly the same and hopefully put in some new techniques and some new resources for 2024.
Sounds wonderful. Thank you.
Awesome. Take care, and we'll chat soon.